use those thigh muscles, squeeze those thigh muscles together to squeeze and turn out of it, placing that weight on the second footstep, or the left foot in this case, to release the right to be able to take that step again. So I'm going to cross over, squeeze out, step. Cross over, squeeze out, step. Okay, so now we just made our steps smaller, which is going to look prettier, and it's going to help us turn faster. So the third piece we're going to add to the puzzle is spotting. So a spot, you just want to keep your eye focused in one direction, in one area, your head. Your body is going to follow your head. Unlike the thought that maybe our head follows our body, when we're spotting, the body has to follow where the head and the eyes are going. So find a place that you can lock onto with the eyes. As you take your first step, you're going to keep your eyes locked into that position. As I cross over, I'm going to keep my eyes locked in that position. As I start to squeeze and turn, I'm going to keep my eyes locked into that position until I can't anymore. And at the point that I can't hold it anymore, I'm going to whip my head around first. And from here, if I find that spot again, what happens is my body will naturally spin out right where I want it to go. Okay, so let's try that again. I'm locked onto my spot as I step. I cross, squeeze out of my turn till I can't anymore, whip the head around to take my next step, squeeze out of it, whip my head around, step, squeeze and turn, whip my head around. Of course, it's really hard to do when you're going really slow, so at your own pace, you can pause the video and practice these turns at different speeds as well. Get some music with different tempos and practice. It's kind of like being a kid with turns. If you haven't worked with turns very much before, you kind of have to just go for it. It can be a little bit scary, but you just have to play with it and learn the techniques through trial and error. So let's try that spot again. So remember, we're putting those two new techniques together. We're going to cross the leg and squeeze out of it, and we're going to hold our spot. Holding the spot is very, very important because it not only is proper technique and looks better, but it's going to prevent you from getting really super dizzy. So we're going to step, we're going to get our spot, cross, turn, whip the head, step, cross, turn, whip the head, step, cross, turn, whip the head, step, cross, turn, whip the head. Now let's try that to the left. So here, we're going to start by marking our turn with the left foot step. So I'm going to step left, I got my spot, cross over right, squeeze out. Left, cross right, squeeze out. Lock onto that spot. So you'll naturally find if you're a right side turner or a left side turner, most people usually prefer one direction, although it is a good idea to try to train yourself in both directions. I actually turn better to my right. I don't get as dizzy. If I turn to my left, I can do it, but for some reason I tend to get more dizzy in that direction. So if you find that happens to you, you're not uncommon. So once again, let's try that on the left. I'm going to step, find my spot, cross and squeeze out. Step, cross, squeeze out. Step, cross, squeeze out. Step, cross, squeeze out. Now a couple more pointers about the body posture. So you really want to make sure you keep your pelvis tucked under when you're doing your spins. Because here's what happens. When we start to spin, if we're untucked at all, this is going to throw our body center off. So if I'm turning, and I can show you, if I start to do my turns and I'm like this is just going to throw me off my axis. And not only that, it hurts. So I like to tell my students to almost think of being a bodybuilder. Here's your pose here. And if you think of ballet, if you've taken ballet or jazz, that's one of the things they teach you in turning, is they really teach you to kind of collapse and tighten everything into your core. The arms come forward right here to really hold everything into your center of gravity so that you can execute those turns. So we don't have to hold this. We're not ballerinas. We're belly dancers, but we definitely want to take those pointers of really pulling everything in. We don't necessarily need to collapse our chest down, but we do want to pull in, pelvis tucked under, and then whether we're going to beat the arms or open, whatever we're doing with the arms, we want to think of keeping them in the front. We never want to hyperextend them back like this because that's going to throw us off our balance once again. So let's go ahead and take the arms this time and just hold them in front. We'll do a right turn and then we'll do a left turn. And we're going to really focus on keeping everything pulled in. You can really squeeze the glute muscles. And we can also have a soft bend in the knees. You don't want to be really bent. You shouldn't have to change your level like this as you're turning. You should be able to think of balancing something on your head and holding your level steady. Okay, so tucked, putting all those elements together now. We're going to cross the legs and squeeze to turn out of it. We're going to spot, and we're really going to practice on keeping that posture together. The arms, we can just hold here, and then we'll slightly pulse open as we're moving. Okay, and that's just going to give us a little bit of the momentum we need to turn. 7, 8, we have pulse, turn, spot, spot, spot. Okay, that was the right side. Let's try the same thing with the left. 7, 8, cross, make sure to hold the spot. Okay, so of course in this video I don't have all the space that you might have in your home or a dance studio to really travel the floor, but that's what you're going to need to do on your own to really get good at these chaîné turns. So go ahead and keep practicing with those. If you really focus on the techniques that I just taught you, you should be able to get those chaîné turns eventually. And please do remember, like I said, they do take some people a lot of time. And when you come back to this section of the video, bring your veil, and we're going to practice some of those turns with the veil. So now let's take those chaîné turns up to speed, and we're also going to add our veil. So I mentioned earlier that I like using the half circular silk veils, especially when I'm doing turns. The circled edge kind of has a nice aerodynamic to it, as well as the silk. So you might want to play around with some of the different veils for you, but I'm definitely a big fan of this veil right here when it comes to turning. So we're just going to hold the veil right here for our spins, and we're going to keep working with those chaîné turns. And this time we're going to mark it every 8 counts. Here's what we're going to do when we start our right turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, step right, 7, touch 8. And this is going to set us up so that we can go right back the other direction with the left foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so our arms are just out with the veil. We're going to get some music, and this is just a fun drill that you can then take at home or in a larger studio and practice really traveling as far as you can with your chaîné turns and continuing on for more than 8 counts. It's always a good idea to practice your chaîné turns for about as long as you can until you just feel too dizzy. And then always alternating your directions will definitely help with the dizziness issue. So let's go ahead and try that with some music. 5, 6, here we go, right? 7, 8, left. And right. And left. And right. And left. Are you spotting? So don't forget to spot as you're going. Make sure that you find your spot right there on the right, and then you're going to keep locking onto that spot. And then when you come back left, when you're here in your pose, and you go for that first turn, find your spot and lock onto it. And if it's not a perfect turn or you don't feel good about it yet, that's fine. You just got to keep practicing. Let's try that again. 5, 6, 5, 6, here we go. Left. And right. And left. Good job. Dancing with your veil, you always want to make sure that you think of and try to come up with the ways that best display your veil and make it flow and look the prettiest. So whenever we're doing our chaînés or turns, one thing that I like to do is actually fold the veil over the shoulder like this. And what that does is it just creates a little bit more of a aerodynamic look, and it makes the veil, it displays the veil better in the turn. Whereas when I'm here, the veil kind of flows off my body, whereas here, it kind of stays right with my arms and looks like they're attached to my arms and just looks prettier when I'm turning. So we're going to take the chaîné, we're actually going to cut it down in half. We did the 8 count over here. So if we go back to the 4 count, that brings us right back into our 3-step turn, which is technically still a chaîné. It's just we're doing 1.5. So whenever you do the fold, the best way that I like to do the fold is the opposite arm of which way I'm turning. So if I'm going to turn to my right, I'm actually going to fold the veil over the left. And what that does is it makes the wind push right against this arm here, and it really keeps that veil right here attached to my arm. So once again, if I'm going to turn to my right, I'm going to fold the veil here, and you really want to have it taut against the back again so that this fold sits right in the crease of your shoulder and your neck area. So I can show you what I'm talking about. As I turn, you can see that the veil is pressing into my arm. And same thing here, I'm going to switch, fold it over the right side when I turn to the left. And again, you can see that the air is pressing it right into my arm. And it just gives it a little bit of a nicer effect than when you just hold your veil out to the side here. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's mark it a couple times first, and then we'll try that with the music. So if I'm going to start my turn to the right, I'm going to fold over the left shoulder. And let's hold those arms up in a nice high V.